Well, I'll go ahead and get started now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Division 46 of the American Psychological Association and Society for Media, Psychology, and Technology. My name is Christian Aloma. I am the current president of the division, and I'm excited to introduce all of you today to today's topic and our speaker. But first, a couple of housekeeping items. One, this presentation is being recorded and will be published to our YouTube channel. Now, as a note, none of you have the ability to turn on your mics or to turn on your videos, so you won't be part of that video in any way. However, your questions, if you post any questions with your identity included, those may be mentioned as Terrance attempts to answer your questions, things like that. But if you post your questions anonymously, of course, there is no worry there. Now, if you would like to ask the presenter a question, and I certainly hope you do, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. You'll see that at the very bottom. Please note, it is not a chat. There is no chat function today, but you should be able to post a Q&A, and you can do so anonymously, or you can include your identity when you post that. Those questions will feed into our panel here, and at the end of the session, if there's time, I'll try to field those questions and share those with Terrance so that we can get your questions answered as well. Now, today's topic is using virtual reality to treat mental health. We're joined today by Terrance Williams. Terrance is a mental health virtual reality developer. He's been developing virtual reality platforms for the last 5 years in this industry. And has included platforms that focus on depression, anxiety, and anger management. He provided a TED Talk on how to use virtual reality to better serve mental health. He also teaches a 7-week online course through New Mexico State University's global campus on building mental health simulations in virtual reality, which we will include in the chat so that everyone can have access to that. So welcome, Terrance, and I'll let you take it from here.
Hello, everyone. Super happy to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for all who has come out to listen today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you have questions, definitely drop them. I see them are coming in already. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will definitely get to those questions soon. So again, my name is Terrance Williams, and yes, I've been developing virtual reality platforms for mental health for the past 5 years now. I've worked with therapists, I've worked with nonprofit organizations, universities, etc., and have been really just diving in onto how we can use these type of simulations to really help mental health. There's so many different ways. Today, I will be going over just like research statistics on the effectiveness of VR for mental health, how to really use VR to better serve mental health, symptoms that can be effectively treated. I will definitely go over some of those with some amazing stories. And of course, HIPAA compliances, what to look out for if you are interested and willing to be a part of that journey of trying to incorporate this into your practice as well. So, and just starting off, virtual reality has impacted so many different things in mental health. But the ones that I wanted to talk about real quick is depression, anxiety, PTSD, and exposure therapy, what those things have been looking like. So with depression, a lot of the type of platforms that you'll see being built on for people that are having depression issues or have been experiencing like high levels of stress and anxiety, but depression specifically, is you'll see that a lot of it is more of a 360 worldview where people are in a rainforest or people are in a tropical island where they can just sit and be calm, hear the wind blowing, water splashing, see an environment which is really calm and relaxing to help with that. And so we're seeing that people they've been going to these type of VR settings, has found that the depression has been decreasing 70%. And usually the time spans is when these studies are going. They look at people that have been going through these things and they monitor them and they update like every 6 weeks on the progress that they're making. So anxiety is another thing. And a lot of what you'll see even in sports related things is that people that have high stressful jobs have things that cause a lot of different anxiety, they're usually use VR in different sessions to do different types of things. So with kind of similar to what I mentioned before, people are using those same type of platforms with like rainforests, tropical islands, being on a snowy mountain, and having these people that have high stressful jobs that can cause anxiety, put them in those type of situations to better help them. Now, when we look at PTSD, this is a very interesting one because PTSD is, as you all may know, can affect people not just have been going through like war traumas, but have been in violent accidents, crimes, things like that have happened to them, very things that can scar them. And so, one of the amazing stories that I'll get to a little bit later is a man named Jimmy Castellanos, who was a war veteran who happened to see his life changed upside down, and how VR kind of saved his life in a sense. And exposure therapy, um, which is also really interesting. People have been put into situations where, let's say, they have a fear of spiders, put them in a simulation to where they can not be so afraid of spiders, where they're in a platform where a spider is crawling on their arm, but it's not really there. But it helps them get over certain types of fears and phobias. And I'm actually going to go over some of those a little bit later as well too. But we're seeing the success rate of exposure therapy anywhere between 66 and 90%. And I'm even going to talk about even things that you may not even thought of when it comes to like pain relief and things of that nature that VR has helped with as well too. So real quick, I'm going to show you an example of a rage room. And rage rooms are built for these are based in real life, where you can go into the actual room and you can pick up certain items, break them. Usually rage rooms that exist in the real world, they have cars that you can go in, take a bat, beat it up. And I had a therapist who was specializing in like anger management. She wanted a rage room for people to like get that anger out for them. And here is an example of that. And I So I hope you all were able to see that okay. That was the Rage Room, which was one of the kind of the first like exposure type of therapies that platforms that I built for someone, and it was pretty awesome. And let me go back to my little thing here. So just going over some of the things that VR has done for people that may even be not what you were thinking. So eating disorders. I remember when I first started off, I had a mom reach out to me and said that her son wasn't able to really put down any food. He was suffering from anorexia. Anytime he had food that would come toward him, he would just gag and things of that nature. He wasn't able to eat whole foods. So one of the things that we talked about doing was building a platform it was a replica of their kitchen that he grew up in, and an actual cheeseburger in VR. And in there, as he picks up the burger and bites down on it, it slowly starts disappearing, and it kind of would help engage him back into that environment where he's comfortable eating whole foods again, which was a really sweet thing. Pain relief, they found that even people like burnt victims, they had a study that was done where they put burnt victims and they put them into a snowy world where there was a snowman, there was snow you could pick up, you could do all types of fun things. And then they found that over a span of 6 weeks that their pain was reduced by like 35%, which was pretty amazing, even though, they were in a virtual space, even though it was a cold type of environment, but they were still able to get their pain relief, their, symptoms down, which was pretty awesome. And one of my favorite stories, PTSD, there was a man named Jimmy Castellanos, and Jimmy Castellanos was serving our country over in Iraq. And one day, Jimmy, usually he would be part of a group that would go out into the town and pick up items that they could bring back to base to have. And during this time, it was during the Super Bowl, and they wanted a new TV to watch the Super Bowl. So Jimmy was supposed to do this. What he usually does is go out and find around town and find things. But at this day, his commander told him, "Stay back and you just keep watch. We're going to send your friend instead to go out into town to find the TV." So, which never has happened for him. So he literally sits back and he's watching. He sees his convoy with all his companions drive into the distance. Next thing you know, boom, they were under attack. He saw the convoy where his comrades were in. He saw the car explode. Immediately rushes over to them. He sees that the person that was sitting in the seat that he was supposed to sit in was unalive. And he saw that other comrades were either unalive or severely injured. And it scarred him. After that, he left the Army. And he spent time doing a lot of different things like counseling, different medicines, and things of that nature. He had a colleague reach out to him saying that they were doing a test for VR, people that have suffered from PTSD. So what he ended up doing was signing up. And when he got there in this environment, it was a big room, the VR goggles, and they gave him a prop AK-47 to hold. And immediately put the goggles on, he saw helicopters going by him. He heard gunshots going by. He heard grenades going off, and it immediately put him back to where he was when he was in Iraq. So he immediately took the headset off and was just like, "Yo, what is this?" And he eventually, when they put him back into that over a period of time, a few months, they were able to see as they controlled how much time he was into that session. So he was able to go in there. When he first got in there, was maybe only a couple minutes. He was able to stay in there longer and longer. Eventually, his PTSD was completely cured, and he is amazing story of how VR can really help people as well too. So those are one of my favorite stories from that, and I always loved it. So when going over HIPAA compliance, there's so many different ways to build VR. One of the really cool things is that there's so many different like platforms and softwares, but the biggest things that you'll definitely would need is absolute privacy settings to where the people that are experiencing, if it's a one-on-one session, if they're in a raise room, etc., where they have the privacy settings to be able to choose what they want to do with their privacy, etc. When it comes to using like safe HIPAA compliant cloud platforms, typically Google Cloud has our own API, AWS as well too, and you can definitely use those type of things to like build these type of things out to where they are HIPAA compliant and they have the tools necessary to keep people safe and their privacy secured as much as possible. So the end-to-end encryption is usually always depending on the data server. So if people are using a headset and maybe they're logging on from their phone and they're using the headset as well too, but it's then within the same app, the same encryption needs to be transmitted to both of each other. So you can't have on the VR headspace just certain things about the person's background, etc., and not have it within the application of the phone. It needs to have an encrypted data that will transfer and be simultaneous throughout the entire experience. So I usually get a lot of different things, questions about HIPAA. There are companies that do these type of things, like Relay is one that has their own VR platform. Typically, sometimes even people get their own VR headsets and then just create the app within the cloud servers within there, and then do those as well too to make sure that they are very compliant. So that is where HIPAA is. Where HIPAA is at, and I think they mentioned before that there's information about me. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, Terrance Williams, Mental Health VR, that is my email. I do have my course as well that is out right now with New Mexico State that teaches people how to build their own VR for mental health. It also teaches them the benefits and inside statistics of how to use mental health to better treat, how to use virtual reality to treat mental health as well too. And there is a 50% off promo code for you all if anyone is interested. Sign up. There is also affiliate avenues as well too. So feel free to hit me up. I think they're going to put my information there as well too. But definitely snag that promo code, and I can put it in the chat as well too. Now I know we had some questions earlier.
All right. And yeah, if you have more questions, please feel free to add those. And if you can stop sharing, Terrance,
Yeah.
we'll get that going for everyone. So one of the questions I have, so again, to the participants, now's the time to drop any Q&A into the Q&A box overall, but I've got a couple of questions for you as well. First, just what inspired you to start developing VR tools for mental health specifically? How did you fall
Yeah.
into something like this?
So when I was 12, my grandmother, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So, and she was my best friend at the time. So I really got to see a lot of how it played out because it went severe pretty quickly. And I remember like the last moments that I had with her, she was talking to my dad, which was his mom and me at the hospital before she passed. And she just completely just didn't remember who we were. And I just thought it was very sad, but it was also very fascinating to me as well, too, is that, um, these things that people go through can affect something so precious. So I just thought there's really cool ways to like help with that. So I've always really been big into technology and things of that nature too, and I found that fascinating. And so when I started developing these things, so I had a lot of therapists that reached out and say, "Oh my God, I have people that I live in Mississippi, but I have people in Alabama or in Virginia, and I would love to be able to have connections with them and do sessions with them." So it started off as building like small classrooms, then it went from small classrooms to the raised room that you saw earlier to doing courses. So it's been a raw ride, but that's where it started.
Yeah. This isn't a clinical experience, of course, but I've been in one of those rage rooms and it was a very enjoyable experience,
Yeah.
as a fun experience personally. But I do have a question from the audience from Corey Roberts. Are you creating environments for aging in place?
For aging in place for like older.
Yep, for elder citizens who don't want to be displaced from their homes, for example, or need to be displaced from their homes, but don't want to lose, of course, kind of the anchor of having their home space with them.
Yeah, I think that's a absolutely great idea. The really cool thing is, it's kind of like once you learn how to draw, you can draw anything. So if you know how to draw, you can draw a boat, you can draw a plane, stuff like that. So I'm able to build out pretty much anything. I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but I think that is definitely well needed because I've talked to a lot of people that are like caregivers and things of
Hmm.
that nature that even want people. I've had an interesting caregiver that reached out to me and said that they wouldn't like a VR experiment where it was people seeing the side of the caregiver of what they actually go through and have to handle things and learn best way to handle patients and things of that nature. So I've had inquiries, but I think it's definitely needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess related to that point, how do you ensure accessibility for users, for participants who may not be as familiar with like VR technology and things like
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. So a lot of the ways that I build, they're accessible over not just VR, but also like on your phone and on your laptop. It's just like in VR, there are apps. Just like on your phone, you have a Facebook app, you have an Instagram app. In VR, there's apps as well too, and a lot of the apps can be used in phone, laptop, and in VR. So I run into situations where people can't afford a $200 headset, which is understandable, but they can still access the platforms via normal ways like the phone and their laptop.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, have there been specific, I know you've shared a few examples of a couple of different diagnoses that seem to respond well to this kind
Mhm.
of environment. Are there any that you find show the most promise with this kind of technology?
Yeah, I would definitely say, um, for what I've been seeing, what they mentioned before in the chat, working with the elderly, because like the VA does a lot of different things with like virtual reality for their veterans that have like PTSD as well. So PTSD, high stress careers or lives, those people that have suffered from depression and anxiety, definitely. And then I would also just put the exposure therapy side, people that had different phobias, things of that nature is where you see a lot of the research going toward it, and yeah, most effective for sure.
Yeah. I'm on the other side of that coin. Are there any patient populations for whom this may not be appropriate?
Yeah, so you would have to be careful when it comes to like children at a certain age or people that are like even to have like schizophrenia and stuff like that, severe like mental issues. have to be really careful because that's when your platform, it really, really matters. If you're having certain colors that may trigger them, things of that nature, certain words, different things that are going too fast. So like high mental illness, it still works, but it's definitely more precaution and more, um, you know, getting them used to it when it comes to onboarding them to use this type of stuff. And then small children. So I wouldn't like, suggest kids under like the age of like 6 to really spend too much time in VR because, being that close up to a screen can affect you as well.
Yeah, yeah. And there's one comment here, again from Corey, said you would think that also people with cardiac issues may run a risk in immersive environments as well, overall. And I think that's obviously something to explore. And as always, with any of these technologies, to be sure to check the full sort of history, clinical history
Yeah.
of your participants before they are there.
Yeah.
You mentioned your 7-week course that you have. I'm curious, what kinds of backgrounds do the participants in your courses typically come from? What kind
Yeah.
of careers are they typically focused on, or what kind of practices do
Yeah.
they typically have?
So far the course started in October. We probably have we've had quite a few people sign up. Usually it's usually mental health professionals and educators tend to stick. I've had a few like people in the health field as well too that sign up for the course. But I would say all aspects of mental health. So I've had psychologists, I've had psychotherapists, I've had even people that were just in occupational therapy. You would sign up, all different types, because I think the big thing is people that want to just have, I guess, like the future of what is probably going to come with VR and AI, having the credibility of saying, I've had this certification where, you know, I can do these things, but
Yeah.
also, have this experience and already know above the curve how to do it.
All right. Well, thank you for that, because my question was, where do you think this is going in the next
Yeah.
10 years?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, I mean, honestly, I think VR is going to play a huge role in mental health, and education mainly. You'll see a lot of gamification come from it as well too. However, those are the main things that I see, and I think AI, and as scary as it sounds, there was a company called Robot that had their own AI therapist and was treating people. I don't think the company is doing as well as they were before, but you're seeing a lot of people trying to use AI as people's own personal therapist, which is really interesting. Don't know how I completely feel about that.
Sure,
VR
sure.
person, being a
Yeah,
VR technology person myself, I think having that human to human interaction is always important as well too. But they were finding that people were getting their thoughts out more using some of the stuff because AI would give recommendations for their mood, exercises tailored completely to them as well too. And a lot
yeah,
of the VR environments are the same way. These environments are catered completely to what you're comfortable with as well too.
yeah, yeah. All right. With that, we've got about 5 minutes left. So, Terrance, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I've got a couple of things to share before we wrap up. So, Jennifer, would you mind bringing up our final slides? Thank you again, Terrance, for a truly sort of insightful and really fascinating look into your platform and the ways in which VR is intersecting with mental health and the psychological fields in general. Now, we do have a couple of other upcoming events open to registration if you haven't registered yet. Jennifer will drop the link into the chat for everyone to access. And you'll see in the sort of upcoming events, we've got one in July 29th. This is one that I'm hosting along with a number of students and young professionals focused on the emerging voices in media psychology. This is a student and practitioner panel. Very interested to hear the perspectives of some of our youngest sort of academics and professionals in the field and their perspectives on the industry. Following that, in October, you will see October 20th, Sander van der Linden, PhD, who will be talking about psychological inoculation against misinformation. So another really sort of fantastic one. There, of course, we also have the APA convention coming in August in Denver, and our division has a lot of really great programming. So if you're planning to attend, do check out our programming. Do stop me and say hi if you see me. I will be there, and looking forward to seeing everyone. You'll also find in the chat as well a link to Terrance's course. Jennifer will drop that into the chat if that isn't there yet. We also highly encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where this recording, as well as all of the recordings from our previous webinars, will be available to rewatch if permission allows. Other than that, I hope everyone has a cool rest of their afternoon and a really lovely summer. And I do hope to see you all in July at our next webinar. Again, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Terrance, for presenting, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you.